stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. When we open our eyes today and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it. 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 Not afraid to say it. And are not afraid to say it.
And are not afraid to say it. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is BlackWestchester.com presents the People Before Politics radio show every Sunday 6 to 8 on InTheMixRadio.com, giving you that real talk for the community since 2014. I had wrote a whole monologue, and then the news of Kobe Bryant came out, and I had to scrap most of what I wrote, but there's something other than that I did want to mention before I speak about Kobe Bryant. Yesterday, we had the an opening reception for an excellent art exhibit at the Mount Vernon Public Library called The Revolution Will Be Visualized. I was there, artist Andre Leroy Davis did a great exhibit. It was inspired years ago after the death of Trayvon Martin and all the things that have happened since, all the deaths, and it was just a celebration. It's booked as The Show is a Week, a viewing, a celebration, a eulogy, a burial, a revival, a mourning, a prayer of comfort, a memorial, an acknowledgement, an obituary, and a repass of thought, and a repass. So I just shared that in the comments section. You can check that out. I was there. We videotaped it, and you see it. The exhibit will be up till the end of February. It's definitely something I encourage everyone to go check out. It's definitely powerful. It's definitely moving. And shout out to, like I said, my partner, Andre Leroy Davis. He was a curator. He gathered several artists together. And shout out to the Mount Vernon Public Library trustees and the employees that put this exhibit together. A lot of great things are happening at Mount Vernon Public Library. So I would like to congratulate them. And like I said, I shared the link so you can check that out. But the news of today is the death of Kobe Bryant. By now everybody should know and has heard about it, and it's
is able to tell you now that NBA star Kobe Bryant was on board that helicopter and is now dead at the age of 41. Our Christine Brennan is with us now on the phone. So, there you go.
So that was the news today. It came out, and finally I had heard TMZ had broke the story, but no disrespect to TMZ, I needed to find it from some other reputable sources because everybody was quoting the TMZ story, and I saw it on NBA TV, and I watched the whole thing. So the report is that he died in a helicopter crash in Southern California this morning. I did get confirmation from ESPN, ABC News, Variety, Sports Illustrated, Los Angeles Times, etc. This is definitely a tragedy that is going to go down in history, like the death of Aaliyah, the death of rock and roll superstars Ricky Valance and Buddy Holly, and a lot of those tragedies like that. This is going to be something that we are going to be talking about for years. And it happened just hours after LeBron James passed him to become number 3 in scoring. Kobe was number 3 with 33,643 points. LeBron James surpassed him yesterday and is now number 3, only behind Karl Malone and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And Kobe texted LeBron last night, continued to move the game forward at King James. Much respect, my brother. 33,644. There's so much that we could talk about, but because of the busy schedule, the busy show we had already previously scheduled, we cannot properly give the proper time to Kobe Bryant is due tonight. But you can check me out tomorrow morning on Radio Westchester with Bob Marone at 8:20. We will be having this conversation about Kobe Bryant, and you can look forward to the celebration of Kobe on blackwestchester.com. And he will now be the cover of our February issue of the newspaper. Couple of other things. Wu-Tang. For all you Wu-Tang fans, there's a Wu-Tang Generation 2, which is the sons of Method Man, Ghostface Killer, ODB, and U-God formed a group a year after Wu's 25th anniversary and released a remix of Cream. Definitely a great video. Check it out. You can tell Meth's son looks just like him, sounds just like him. You can tell that's ODB's son, and you can tell that it says you can tell a tree by its fruit. These are some talented young men. You could tell they take after their parents, after their fathers. We're not going to get too much into anything else. We do have with me. When she does enter the studio, we have the lovely Lorraine Lopez here with us today as co-hosting the show. Dr. Bob is not here this week, and I'm not sure if Damon Jones is on his way or not. We didn't touch base today, but there's a possibility he may be coming soon. And our first guest is Yonkers Mayor Mike Spano. Is back in the studio again. So before we go any further, Lorraine, is there anything? Say hello to the people first off.
Oh, hi people. How are you? Where am I?
Also, is there anything you want to talk about Puerto Rico? Anything else in the few minutes we have before the interview?
No. Actually, I teamed up with Ben from Yonkers Voice.
Who's tuned in?
He is?
Yes.
Hey, Ben.
Hey, Ben. Thank you, Ben. Thank you so much. Ben has been out there, and he's been documenting the journey, and he's uncovered so much stuff that's going on in Puerto Rico that's very disappointing. People are not getting the help like the governor's saying that she's getting. She's giving them. The senator, he interviewed the senator. The senator gave him a nice bluff story. But when they turned around, they went to look at the houses. They found elderly people without one leg. There was he went and they checked on a lady that was missing a leg, an elderly woman, and then a 5.4 earthquake hit.
Yes, I heard.
And the woman couldn't run out.
Wow.
And he said he was scared. He said he was petrified, and the poor woman was even more scared.
I'm looking forward to see Ben's footage because I'm sure he has plenty of video. Looking forward
he's got
to
a lot of video.
Rue Ross, shout out for all that you're doing, and for everybody else who is working in efforts to tell the real story and for relief efforts for Puerto Rico. I want to applaud you all. We have to take care of our people everywhere, and what's going on. I'm still going till they prove me wrong. I'm still saying that this is something man-made. This is not Nate. This is not an act of God. This is something man-made. I can't prove that just now. They were talking about drilling in Haiti and some other places that are on the same plane, and some other things. We're going to find out, but I really believe, because again, in my 54 years, I'll be 54 on February 5th. In my 54 years, I have never remembered Puerto Rico having a history of earthquakes.
Well, the last time they had like a major earthquake was over 100 years ago.
That's my point.
I think
You know
it was
what I'm saying?
103 years ago, yeah.
That's my point. And now we've had like hundreds of them in like, a couple of months. Like, so shout out to all those tuned in. Walia, Westchester, the Westchester Hispanic Law Enforcement Association, Carol Washington from Strong Island, Don Starchild Moore checking us out, Cicely Graves, Glenn B. Butler, Daniel Terry, Luis Cherico, Terrence Rock. What's up, my man? Rue Ross, Yonkers Councilwoman, Tasha Diaz, who said hello, fam, and hello, Mr. Mayor.
Tasha.
Hi, Tosh.
Westchester Leah said good evening. Carol Washington said hello,
Hi, Hector.
everybody. Damon Jones, I guess, is not coming because he's tuned in. So I don't know if he'll be in the studio. And your sister, Susie, is tuned in.
Hey, Susie.
Yes.
Susie, look, the mayor's here.
So without further ado, we're going to get right into it. We have a big show. We have I invited several of the mayors of the major cities. Mayor Bramson from New Rochelle, I haven't heard from Mayor Rainey from Peekskill, I haven't heard back from him.
He comes here all the time, though.
And we still got to have Sean Patterson Howard on.
Yes, sir.
And I wanted one of the things I wanted to talk about, and we've invited the county executive on, like we started off last year, to talk about a little bit about the year in review, the election, and what your agenda is going forth into the new year. Now, I do want to get this out of the way. Last time you were here, I know you caught some flack for the last time you were here because you said you weren't running, and a lot of your opposition,
and I was not running. That's right.
lot of your opposition used that video because I saw it all over Facebook, calling you out.
Yeah, sorry about that. We didn't give it to them. They took it off of the Facebook.
Well, it's on YouTube, so yeah.
I said it, right? You can't escape it. And when the city council presented this opportunity to me, it gave me, kind of gave me a rethink. And I said, there's so much happening. There's so many good things happening in the city in terms of economic development, in terms of getting our schools rebuilt and moving our agenda forward. And then, of course, we have MGM Grand and them coming to Yonkers and doing a full gaming, and there's a community benefits package that has to be negotiated, not just with MGM, but with New York.
Right.
And of course, with having Lionscape coming and the community benefits package has to be negotiated there, it just seemed like, like I wanted to stay on to finish the job. And so that was why
I did inform everybody, because as soon as it was announced, Akeem got in touch with me, and he gave me a statement from you and told me that when you said it on the show, that was your full intention, but people like Dr. Bostic and others had urged you to keep that you need to run, and that you decided to run. But
Dr. Bostic was one of them. There were a number of them. Listen, I love this job. There's no doubt about that. But this is an all-consuming, unnatural lifestyle. Right?
Yeah.
Being mayor. And so, and I wasn't sure that, you go through 2 terms, 8 years, the rigors of 8 years as mayor of the 4th largest city, and the issues that we deal with every single day were, I thought maybe it was time to do something else. Mm-hmm. I feel I have a lot left in the tank, a lot left to offer, and the job left to finish. So that's why I was glad I was given that opportunity. The city council put it out there. There was I supported it. There was an extra public hearing, as you know.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people were very not happy about that.
Well, they don't normally do these public. There's one public hearing for change of the local law. We did 2 public hearings, one before and then one before I signed it. We had no letters of opposition, no organized support in opposition. There were only a few people that, matter of fact, everyone that, if you balanced out who was in support of it versus who was against it, the people who supported the extension far outnumbered the people that were opposed to it. And everyone knew that, and everyone saw it. It was public, and it was, like I said, and we went the extra mile, made sure there was an extra public hearing, just so that we can air it out.
Now, one last thing on that to give you a chance to address it, because there were those who said the city, I guess at the last time they went up for term limits, it went to a vote with the people, and the people voted it down. And they were a little upset by the way this happened, because they said the people didn't get to have their say. They had already previously voted this down, and the council wouldn't push this forward. And some believe that you were behind getting it pushed.
The as you know, the founding fathers have give us two ways to change a city charter. One is by council vote. The other one's through initial referendum. Right. The and while the people did, you're right, they did vote in favor of the term limit structure that was there. It was never presented to them, though, having 3 terms like Westchester has. And I think that was, we never once said we were going to eliminate terms. We just said we'd be more in line with the public policy that currently exists in Westchester and do 3 terms rather than do the 2-term law. And we've got very little, almost no pushback. Now, I remember when they put up the term limit fight a few years back when John Spencer was mayor, and there was a lot of opposition. But the opposition was because the proposal was to repeal term limits in its entirety. This wasn't a repeal. This was just allowing it to be 3 terms, which the public had never gotten to vote on. And I think that the public had gotten to vote on it based by the turnout and the support that we got, that they probably would have supported it. But the thing is, I wouldn't have been in office for that to happen. So, so this was the council vote. And we ended up with 5 votes.
Wow.
So you reelected. This is your 3rd term. What would you, if you had a chance to go through and just let everybody know, kind of quick year in review of last year, and what do you have in plan for the future?
There's no reinventing the wheel here. What we are embarked on is a mission to make the city better each and every single day than it was the day before, each and every year than it was the year before. And it's always in the same areas, making sure good quality of life, making sure our kids are getting a good education, making sure that when there's economic development happening in the city, that it's a type of economic development that can benefit everyone, make sure that when we're building housing, we're not just building market rate housing, but we're building affordable housing, we're building workforce housing. These are the things that we're doing, we continue to do, and I'm sure we'll talk more about it as the show goes on. But we have rebuilt 80% of our municipal housing stock. That's the first time since World War II that housing stock has been rebuilt like this. And what we did was really simple. We worked with our IDA. We worked with New York State. We worked with the governor and our state senator and our assembly members. We worked with the private sector. And we were able to get tax incentives and local investments and IDA investments that allowed us to do exactly what they were doing on the water's edge. If you go to the water's edge, they're luxury apartments. They have, new kitchens, new floors, new windows, microwave ovens, dishwashers,
Nice.
Right. So what are we doing in the new housing that we're building? Exactly the same.
Really?
Thing. Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
So if you go into the workforce housing, that, especially the municipal housing that we just built, it has all the same amenities, and we did that intentionally because we want to make sure that the people that live here, who have always been here, are benefiting from the good things that are happening on the waterfront. And we have a lot more work to do, but we are getting there.
I want to make an announcement again. I know a lot of people are waiting for a conversation on Kobe Bryant. we had already scheduled this show with Mayor Spano, an interview with Mayor Spano, and then an interview with Westchester County DA candidate Mimi Rocah, and we're going to stick to that. But I will be dealing with Kobe Bryant in detail on blackwestchester.com. He will be the cover of the February issue, and you can hear me talk more about it, about Kobe, on tomorrow's on Radio Westchester on the Bob Marone Show at 8:20. So I just want people to know we did mention it, and I do have a 3-minute video of some of his highlights that I am going to play between interviews. But I just wanted people to know, because I'm getting a lot of comments about Kobe, and let me be clear, our condolences go out to the entire Bryant family, and whoever else, because they have not named everybody who was on the helicopter, but his daughter, his 13-year-old daughter, has been confirmed that she was on there and she passed. And there was up to 3 other people, maybe another player, and
it was one of her teammates.
Oh yeah, one of her teammates and a parent.
One of the parents.
Right. So
and the pilot. So that would be 5.
Okay, so then that would be, so that's another question, because people were asking me, was he piloted in the helicopter, and I didn't know the answer to that.
He knows everything.
I was watching CNN before I got here.
Yeah, so we're going to be dealing with that on blackwestchester.com in the newspaper, and I might actually go live and do a live video this week, having a discussion on Kobe. Shout out to a few other people. Your whole family's on. Hector's tuned in.
What's up, Hector?
Damon's tuned in, and he said, what's up? Nope, I didn't make it. Ha, 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 ha. He said, what's up, Mayor Spano?
What's up, Damon? How you doing, man?
Barry McGooey's tuned in.
Hey, Barry.
Dr. Bob is tuned in. Omi Medina's tuned in. Jimmy Brower. Then there's some Kobe questions. I hope I answered those. And I do have one question that came up, and we can get that out of the way too. A diversity. I'm speaking about diversity. So once we announced that you and Mimi Rocah were going to be in the show, several people gave me questions for her, and one question came up about diversity. That there were 33 new cops, but only out of the 33 new cops, only 2 were black, and 30 new firefighters, and only 2 were black. And they're complaining about a lack of diversity, and I figured I'd let you address that as well.
Well, out of 33 cops, just so you know, nearly 50% of them were of color. I'm sorry, were minorities. So they're women, Hispanics, and blacks. But in terms of hiring, though, just black police officers, that's a constant challenge for us. The way the tests are graded out and the lists are presented, we, and I say we, me as the mayor, can pick only a certain number of people, right? The people that are in the zone, and very often we don't have the number of black officers that we would like to pick from, because they're not there. And so if they're not
Is it
there,
that they're not applying, or they're not scoring high enough on the test?
No, I can talk that. You know what? I really think this is a good conversation. You know why? Because this comes up very often when I speak to a lot of people, and people need to understand what's happening. The way the police department list works is very different than the fire department list.
Okay.
Let's talk about the police department list.
Okay.
Where they zone it out. So it's everybody's got 100. Everyone's got a 95 to a 99, right? Everyone who's got, there's 1, 2, 3 zones, right?
Right.
All 5 points. Or I believe it's anybody up to 95 to 100, anybody 90 to 95, that type of thing.
Right.
So when you're in the top tier, when you're in the first tier, so let's say there's 100 people got 100. 95 of them are white. Okay? Now, the way the law is, the law says, because they want me to have diversity, they say I could pick in that zone, in the 100 zone, I should pick diverse. So I picked 2 black candidates. All right. Now remember, that's all I got. That's it. I still have to pick the other 98 candidates before I can get to the next zone. Well, the other 98 candidates are all white. So therein lies the problem, because I can't get them. So I've spoken with Senator Stuart Cousins about this. I said, there needs to be some changes in state law that allow us, for diversity, to maybe go into a second tier or another zone to grab more black officers. Because if you look at the term, do we have minority representation? Yeah, this last class was nearly 50%, but it was women, Latinos, and blacks, but only two black officers. So we pick as many as I can, and we continue to work with the local group. Now, that being said, so that's what we have to deal with state law. So what are we doing locally to try and get more, more candidates of color to take the test? And we have outreach. We do community outreach with our police officers.
A lot.
Yeah, a lot of it. And we send our police officers into the schools to talk to young kids. We do a lot more outreach in the community than we've ever done before. Stop and shake, coffee with a cop, pizza with the police. The Explorers program, which we've never done. We only started doing it the last couple of years.
That's an amazing program.
It really is. And
yes,
we do
kudos.
all that because
Yes.
I want this interaction to take place between police officers and the kids in our community. And if you do that, that would. And now Damon's on listening to us. He has the idea of adding points to the young people who graduate from our schools for civil service exams, which I love that idea. But we've yet to be able to get that off the ground at the state capitol. But that would really help because, again, our schools, are well over 80% children of color, and if we give points to the kids who go through our public schools, we give them a few extra points, that might give them a little bit of a leg up on the test
an incentive
to
too.
achieve, and an incentive to get a higher score, and let's get picked. So there's a lot of
That's
ways
an
for us to
excellent
deal with this, but when people say there aren't enough, we are not hiring enough black police officers, they're right. But has to be some systemic changes in how we're getting young people to take these tests and how we're picking the candidates, because the way it's structured, I can't get to them until I get to the next tiers.
So what? And you said fire was different. So what's the difference with the fire?
Well, fire is more the traditional way of civil service. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and it's hard to explain. People, I don't want to confuse anybody, but it's not a tier. So I can pick one of three, and so I basically have to pick it in order, and that's why the fire test is a little different. So I don't have as much discretion there at all. As a matter of fact, I have only the discretion that the civil service law allows me, which is I could skip 1 and 2 to get to 3, and that's it.
Okay, I wanted to get that out because again, that was a question that came up, and it's a conversation.
I hope I explained
But
that.
you know what?
There's a lot
But
to
like
it.
I always say, AJ, more people have to take the test. There's so much outreach, and a lot of people saying yes, I'm going to take the test. I want to take the test. They don't study, they don't take it serious, and they don't go back to finish it. They don't go back to finish what they started. I mean, anyway.
Do you
By
have
the
any
way,
questions for the
Lionel Turner has tuned in, and so has Judge Karen Best campaign.
Hi,
Peter
Lionel. Hi,
Peter
Karen.
Pilati, Simone Cone, Tanya Connors,
Hey, Tanya.
Uncle Frank Trulio, Carlton Beckford Dozier, Kotick Presley Memorial. Is that a church?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
okay.
in Yonkers.
Okay.
Presley Memorial.
Yes. So we got a whole lot of Yonkers people in today.
That's right.
So Lorraine, any questions?
Yeah, I got a simple question. I don't want to go backwards, but in your 8 years, what specific thing has given you the most pride that you've accomplished?
It's something really simple. Lorraine, it's
Other than your children.
Well, obviously, no. It's just making people say that they live in Yonkers again. I felt that when we were younger, people very often didn't say where they lived. If they were asked, where do you live, they'd say Westchester or, some other place.
In my case, Bronx,
right,
because it was next to us,
Right, or some people or Upper Bronx. But I think that people now are not afraid to use the Y word anymore. I think they're proud of their city. They're proud to say they live here. And if that's part and parcel because of the things that we've been able to working together. I say ad nauseum. I talk about our diversity. When I say it ad nauseum, in other words, I say it over and over and over again, and people probably get tired of hearing it. Well, because Yonkers had that history of not being a very
segregation.
The segregation,
and
not being very friendly towards every ethnic group, and we are one of the most diverse cities of our size in all of America. And I think that when people wonder why things are going pretty well here, they have to look at our diversity as our strength. Know that you look at a city council that 30 years ago would have been entirely white, and now we have Latino, Latinas, right, black, first openly gay, right, Mike Sabatino.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's an impressive city council.
Yeah.
And everyone worked together, and everyone is not. You don't have the backbiting. Everyone's trying to figure out how we solve our problems.
I noticed that about you. I noticed that you're able to work with everybody in the city council. When I worked with the two administrations, and when I was with the council, there was always a division. There was always constantly fighting with the mayors, and I don't see that. And I think that says a lot about your character, Mr. Mayor.
No, I appreciate it.
Yeah, it says a lot about your character.
But it's also a lot about them, too, though.
Yeah, of course.
Even if your intentions are to try and bring people together and work together to solve problems, if you're dealing with a personality that's unwilling to do that, you're kind of right. You kind of can't do nothing, right? You're stuck. I've been fortunate and where I've been able to have people I could work with. I have, Chuck Lesnick. I could work with Chuck Lesnick very well. I have Liam McLaughlin. I could work very well.
I
with
love
Liam.
Right? I love Liam.
So and of course Michael, I work very well with him. So it's if I was stuck with maybe one of the other personalities that you had to deal with when you were there, I don't know if it would have been the same outcome. But I do know that at least working with these individuals, it's been good because we got to solve people's problems. That's really what it is. We have the labor force expects to be paid and expect to have a good contract, and they want their contracts on time. I know Barry's listening, so he wants the contract on time. Their contracts are expired, and that's reasonable to expect. And of course, he should expect that. And you can't just let contracts sit in language for years upon years. It's not good for the psyche of the workforce. But so we have that, and then of course we have the quality of life issues. Things as simple as potholes. Fill the damn potholes. And we get to the point where people are like, well, they don't realize what's going on. We get a bad winter, and all of a sudden you can't fill potholes anymore because of a certain temperature. If it goes down a certain temperature, you can't fill them. But my point is, we're always trying to solve people's quality of life problems. We're trying to keep our workforce happy and motivated to work for the people of our city, and you do that by having good politics, good people in office who at least to the public look like we're working together. And you know what? That doesn't mean we don't fight. We fight behind closed doors. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as we, at the end of the day, come together
for the good of the people.
Done.
Yes.
So the other news is that you are the first New York State mayor to endorse a presidential candidate in the election, and you endorsed Mike Bloomberg.
Yes.
Speak about that.
I worked obviously with Mike Bloomberg early in my administration when I became mayor. When I became mayor, he had invited me down to New York. He took me, give me a tour of New York City and the things he was working on. I was amazed by the turnaround that he was able to put forth in New York, and much of it was already happening already, but that he was able to shepherd the city through some pretty tough times, especially in the post 9/11 era. And I, like myself, I try to see myself as more of a problem solver, more middle of the road. I don't see myself as idealistically hard left or hard right. I see myself as somebody who just wants to get the job done and find a way to do that. I also know that if you're mayor of a city, whether it's a huge city like New York City or a small city or a medium-sized city like Yonkers, that you really are on the front lines. The mayors are on the front lines of what's happening in America today. They're on the front lines of what's happening in terms of gangs and gang violence. They're on the front lines in terms of police relations with the community. They're on the front lines of making sure our kids are getting a good, solid education. They're on the front lines of making sure that we're doing everything we possibly can to pull our kids out of poverty so that they can succeed in this world. And so all that happens with a mayor, and that's why I think a mayor would be the right choice.
So you think that he could run this country, and more importantly, do you think he can beat you think he can beat Donald Trump?
I think he can beat Donald Trump.
Hope
and I
so.
think that's
Because a lot of people right now that I've talked to so far is not that they like this candidate, they like that candidate, but they don't think they can beat Donald Trump.
Exactly.
And I think some people are just settling for beating Donald Trump is the priority, and then we'll worry about everything else afterwards. So,
well, I think the priority has to be to beat Donald Trump, right? And so, and I think as a Democratic Party, we should be, we want to put forth our best candidate. We want to make sure our candidates espousing the ideals that we all aspire to have achieved. But, if the person's not in office to do these things, then we're really not accomplishing anything. So if we can get a candidate, the best candidate, to beat Donald Trump and get 70% of what we always wanted, you know what? That's a lot more than we would have gotten had the current president stays in office. So,
and what made you come out so early?
I thought it was important to at least have my voice count, and so that's why I put forward. One thing to remember too about being mayor of the city, is very different than any other job. When I was in the state assembly, when I was in the county legislature, when I was in the county legislature, you have a job to do. You're a member of a group, 150 members of the assembly, right? 62 members of the Senate, but you're part of this group. And when you do good things, because you work hard. The legislators work very, very hard. When you do good things, you can say, I worked hard to get this thing done. When things don't happen, well, you know what? Why didn't it happen? Well, because the speaker didn't do it, or the governor vetoed it, or the Senate refused to pass it, right? Or the county executive didn't want to do it, or the county legislature, the majority didn't want to do it. There's always someone else that you can blame. When you're mayor,
The buck stops with
nobody.
The buck stops with you.
The mayor is everything kind of stops at that person. The reason I say that is because Bloomberg obviously didn't have a perfect record as mayor. No one does.
The stop and frisk thing is
and
really
that's
holding.
And that's clearly something that weighs heavily on a lot of people's minds, and I get it. But you have to look at the body in its whole, holistically, and say, what? How good of a job did he do in terms of reducing crime in New York, in terms of improving our schools, in terms of trying to end gun violence, in terms of pushing for a very progressive agenda on the environment. And you know what? He scored high marks on every one of those issues. And so he, in my opinion, is somebody that you have to look at overall. Because, when you look at people and you look at decisions they made, you have to understand contextually those decisions they're making, right? You don't know, you got to go back to that moment in time. And you know what? We're not always going to make the best choices. We're not always going to make number one choices for people. We're going to do the best we can. We're going to always make, I think, good choices, the best we can at the moment. But one thing about a mayor, you can't escape from your record. because it all does start with you, and you have to.
You get credit
live
for
with that.
everything that's good, and you get credit for everything that's bad.
AJ,
You
I
do.
got two
You do.
questions.
I got one audience question, and then I'm gonna get to you next. I'm gonna get to you next. We have a listener wanting to know: is Yonkers still planning to open a new family homeless shelter?
Yonkers, okay, I'm glad you brought the homeless shelters up. Westchester County funds the homeless shelters. The Westchester County opens and closes shelters. The city taxpayer dollars are not there for the opening and closing of shelters. Now, we don't completely walk away from homeless because the city charter doesn't handle homeless. We hire 2 homeless outreach officers, and we've done some things to be helpful. But at the end of the day, we rely on the county to do the things they're doing. They are in the process of opening another shelter. We are working with them in that effort, but at the same time, we want Westchester. We'd like Westchester to recognize that when you're dealing with the homelessness in our community, it has to be more than we're going to just store you in a nice warm place and then job accomplished. It has to be a full round of services that provide for the homeless, especially many of them suffer from mental illness. Find out what those services are, make sure you get those services taken care of, and the goal should be to get people off being homeless and get them into a home or get them to a residence, right? That's something that, at least in the past administration, they were not very good at. They thought that if they just took 100 people and put them in a room built for 50, that they accomplished something. No, that's not the philosophy of the current administration. But there's still a lot of work they need to do in terms of fixing what was broken when they took office, and we're working with them. But people have to understand that this county does the homelessness for Westchester.
Lorraine.
All right, I have 2 questions. One is about the census, but the first one is about municipal housing. So, are you building more municipal housing or renovating municipal housing?
We are renovating all the municipal housing.
Are you going to be changing the names?
We actually are in the process of changing some of the names. But what's in the one over here, Palisades? Soul Bombs. We're changing Soul
That's where I
Bombs.
was born. You changed it to Palisade Towers. Yes.
Well,
now,
I didn't change it. The Municipal Housing Authority.
The
did.
municipal. Okay. Is there any way you can commit to at least one of these municipal housings to be named after a minority? Because not one of them is. And it's always been a pet peeve of mine.
Okay.
Can you
I can commit.
You can
I
commit.
can commit to push for that.
Okay, can you commit to
Yes.
And if you need my help, I'm here.
Okay. I
Okay,
can
thank
commit
you.
to push for that.
Okay, now the second.
Now don't
yes.
forget, daylighting 3.
Uh-huh.
So we did daylighting 1, daylighting 2, daylighting 3s with the wheel. That's a brand new park.
Yeah.
Has not been named after anybody yet.
Where at?
It's a new park behind City Hall with the daylighted river.
Oh, yeah, the one where the Mexicans go to when they have events.
Yes.
Yeah,
and
I call it
and
the
I've
Spanish
been,
Park.
And I've been speaking with the council members there and saying, this is an opportunity for us to name
Yes,
the park
name it after.
after a prominent person from the community of color. So
Yeah.
But I think there's going to be a discussion on that. So
Yes.
you might want to be a part of that.
Yes, please. I'm available. So you committing to me that I
Yeah.
can help you?
Yes.
All right,
All right.
you people, you heard that. Okay, now the second part. How is the planning for the census going? Because I know the last census, I was in charge of it along with the planning department. And we worked, and I hired Carmen Goldberg, but we fell short. How is that?
We're so, and we're so close to taking
I
over
know.
Rochester. Right now, Yonkers is the 4th. I'm pointing to 5 fingers up. But we're the 4th largest city in New York, right?
Mm-hmm.
The big 5 cities in New York are New York City, Buffalo, Rochester, Yonkers, and Syracuse. But we're very close to overtaking Rochester and becoming the 3rd largest city in New York State.
Wow.
And so, and we can only do that with a good, solid census. And we have. It's funny you said Carmen Goldberg. Her daughter works in my office, Melissa Goldberg. is
A daughter-in-law.
yes, the daughter-in-law. Sorry,
Yeah.
the daughter-in-law is helping put that effort together.
Oh, fantastic.
If you want to be a part of that and help us out with that too, we
Yes,
have a
I'm
committee
very
in that.
knowledgeable
You know,
about that.
being
Yeah,
that
have
you did
someone.
it- being
I
you
don't
did
know
it,
who to
that'd
reach out
actually
to.
be-
Huh?
We'll talk about it after the show.
Oh, okay,
All right, 'cause
fantastic. You
being
see that?
did it
Two
before-
things.
Well, being you did it before, you can be really helpful.
I've done it before. Yeah, I know where the nooks and crannies are to look for those.
I don't know
folks, too.
how much you want to talk about it, or if you
Thank
can
you,
talk much
ma'am.
about it. But how is Akeem?
Akeem is doing fine.
And if you can speak about anything going on with his situation.
No, Akeem is back at work.
Oh, that's good news. That's great
He's
news.
recovering. He's still, going through. He'll go through a very long recovery, but he's walking and he's talking and he's working and he's, but he's just gonna have he has a tough time with the injuries he sustained to his pelvis and his legs. So he's got a long recovery, but he's a great kid. He's a smart kid. Listen, I don't want to comment on what he may or may have done because I don't want to get into the legal aspects of it.
Yeah.
But whatever it is, he'll deal with that with the courts, and he'll get beyond that. And,
We certainly wish him the best.
One of our listeners
Shirley
said,
said,
"You better appreciate
Paul
Lorraine,
Anthony
Mayor
Cuesta.
Spano. Mayor Spano, she is a Latino Swiss Army knife for the community leadership." I don't know what that means, but it sounds like.
I'm gonna get that in a T-shirt. That's the guy that Paul Anthony Pursuta Cuesta. He's from. He worked. He was the manager for the street team for. Come on, tell me what you did. For the one that beat Gordon Burroughs, Ruth Walters.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was the director of the street team. He's worked in a very.
He's working on the youth. He's working with the youth.
Young
he's
Democrats.
He's in charge of the youth for the United Nation Association
Yep,
Westchester
I know he
is.
chapter. He's over the youth and the Green Initiative and. All
Yeah,
that
he
stuff.
works with Latimer real closely with the environment.
He said field director for Jose Alvarado.
okay.
He was field director for Jose Alvarado too.
And Ruth Walters.
And Ruth Walters, yes.
He did a good job.
And
And he's a good friend of
Rue
mine.
Ross, Ben from Yonkers Voice, second that and said, yes, she sure is. Talking about Lorraine.
Yeah, but come on, put in my name with a knife. Oh God, that's so dangerous.
So I don't know if you did much of it, but I want to give you an opportunity. What is the agenda for going forward? What is it that you would like to accomplish? What is your platform or anything you want to tell the people about what your plans are?
It'd be interesting. We're formulating a lot of different things, at least to present for the March 18th State of the City address. But expect this. I mean, there's a lot of wonderful things happen that we need to continue and get finished. There's still another 2,000 units of housing that have to get built. We still have to get the community package that is promised to us with additional aid and get the Yonkers Raceway off the ground for full gaming. We still have to get Lionsgate here, but we also have to remember
what's Lionsgate? What's that?
Lionsgate is the new film studio that's coming to Yonkers. They're making a $100 million investment in Southwest Yonkers, and it's a recognition that the film industry wants to come here and invest here and be part of Yonkers.
Can I
sure.
ask you a question?
Sure.
In Mount Vernon, we have a lot of movies and stuff filmed and TV shows and stuff. And I'm always suggesting with the last 3 administration that they put some initiative. There's a lot of young producers, wannabe producers and actors and stuff that there's something in their negotiation to come in it that they give something to training the youth to be the next
Apprentice program, you talking
some
about?
kind of apprentice program, because I mean a lot of our youth, everybody doesn't graduate high school college bound, and you know what I'm saying, some of these jobs.
I'll tell you what. You know what? We are in the process of bringing Lionsgate in. They're coming in with a $100 million investment. Part of that process is what you call a community benefits package. So we want to find out, what are they going to do for us in our community? I'm going to take that message to them as we go forward and try to work something
because
out there.
our youth.
I got to make sure I write that down.
We
so I
don't. And I mean, I don't live in Yonkers, but we don't. the problem with the youth right now, there are not enough programs, there are not enough training,
They're gonna be right
there's not
here
enough.
in our kids' backyard.
Right.
So
and maybe
that's a
that,
great place
maybe
for
some
Saturday.
Mount Vernon kids can come over and
Yeah,
learn
they come
too,
over
you know
too.
what I'm saying? So, but I think that they need to, they're coming here and, we need to hold their feet to the fire and make them do something, because we have a lot of young filmmakers in the making. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people that want to be behind, not even want to be actors and actors, want to be behind the scenes. If they were trained to hold the lights, those people that do the light, that's a career that makes a lot of money. The people, the grips
absolutely.
and all of those things that do, those stage hands.
But,
those
my
are-
son is a movie set director.
Was it really?
Yeah, he is.
So those are the people
And
that
you know how he started? In school. In Yonkers Public School, he was training. He did the videos, the cameras and stuff
yeah.
like that. Yeah.
I mean, tell you, those guys, those people, I should say guys, because men and women, but they call them the photogs. When they're making,
Right.
better than middle-aged weight,
and that's a career.
That's a real career.
And that's something that we can sow into our youth to give them careers that they can. Trump says, "Oh, I got so many jobs." Yeah, jobs that you can't pay a salary on. I mean, you can't live off of. I mean, these are careers that a lot of our kids don't get,
right.
black and brown, but they, with that training, they can be the next. What did you say your son?
Movie set director.
The movie set director.
Yeah, he started
the
in the
grip,
Yonkers
the
Public
guy who
Schools.
handles the lights, and
Right.
Yeah.
all of those people make a
Stage
career.
hands,
That's
they
a
make
career.
a lot of money, those
Right.
guys.
So I just think we need to sow that into our kids, and when we have opportunities like that, I would like to see that be in the negotiation.
Yeah, I agree.
And-
I agree with that, and that's something that we'll add to it.
Speaking about Akeem, he's listening right now. He's tuned in. I just want to let him know that we send him prayers, love, and light, and we got your back, Akeem, and we hoping for speedy recovery, because we need you working for the city of Yonkers. You're a good man. We appreciate you.
Hi, Keem.
Is there anything I didn't ask you that you want everybody to know?
No, I think this has been really this has been fun. I appreciate it.
I got a question for
we
you.
We have an open door policy. We are in
Okay.
Yonkers,
Yeah.
and you are the mayor of Yonkers, and y'all have a wealth of issues and things that go on and need to be addressed. Anytime you want to come here and address the situation, and you want to touch upon a topic and reach the
great.
community, I've extended this before, but I mean, like,
I do have to make it. I have to come here more often. is what I'm
Like
saying.
Andre Rainey, I can't get him to come to Peekskill all the time from Peekskill, but you're here. You're like, this is Yonkers, right? Like, we're
I
in
just
your
have to
city.
drive down Tucker Hill Road. I'm here.
Right. So I want to know that it's an open door,
Thank you.
and I offer
If you ever need us to get the message out about something.
I've given Paul Feiner and Andre Rainey and Andre Wallace when he was mayor. If you ever want to do a monthly column or anything, a message or whatever you want to get out in the paper, if that's
Right.
something that you would be interested in doing.
Yeah, you know what? I
We-
would be interested in that. Too.
Yeah, so that's what I'm going to start that back up. I mean,
Okay.
Paul Feiner is going to be one of the people.
Okay.
Andre Rainey keeps saying he is, but he says he's not a writer, so he doesn't do it. I would probably reach out to Mayor Patterson Howard too as well.
Perfect.
But this way we get, because the county press does it a little bit, and some of the other papers do it, and it gets a chance for when you read Black Westchester to hear from the leadership what's going on
Right.
in the community and the various communities around
Right.
Westchester. So
Oh, good.
yeah, so
You talk about like a monthly thing?
monthly or how often you want to do it. If
Okay.
you don't want to do it every month and you want to do it every other month, or
every 6
I mean, we could every
Okay.
quarter or
Okay.
something. I mean,
That's
whatever
actually
whatever is
better.
convenient
You
for
know,
you.
update
Better.
for
'Cause
Mayor
even
Spano.
monthly, you kind of run out of things to talk about.
Like
Right,
an
right.
update, every 6 months or something. Update what's going
Yeah,
on.
but
in the city of
when
Yonkers.
you can touch with Lorraine, or your people can get in
We'll
touch
talk
with me,
about it.
and we work it out. But I mean, that would be something.
One thing that we, and I'm glad you brought it up before, but I want to bring it up again, is the
Okay.
census. The census, but a lot of people don't realize how important the census is.
Yes,
Getting that count and
yes.
being counted, whether you're documented or undocumented, having these bodies counted means a lot to us in terms of federal aid, state aid, formulas and how formulas are written are all use the census. On our redistricting, they use census lines when we want to draw the lines for representation.
Yeah.
And and they do the same thing for congressional seats and state legislative, state rep seats. So people realize how important it is. And I know that, especially in the undocumented community,
Yeah.
there is a distrust of government. We have to work that
Yeah.
as best we can.
Is there any protection from Yonkers from ICE? Because I know
Absolutely.
ICE was they were trying to deputize the local police departments to, to go
Let me tell you what I did, and I did this. We wrote it into our policy. It's written in our police policies. And we did it when Gardner was here. That we are not asking about people's, what their residential, their status, their immigration status. We don't ask that question. We are here to serve and protect, and we're not going to ask about people's status as a citizen. That's not something we do, and that's not something we're concerned about. We don't hold people for ICE unless, and there is an unless they pose a threat to the community. If they pose a threat, so if they're someone who just murdered somebody,
right.
we're not letting them out.
Or if they have a warrant, you gotta.
Well,
you might work with
we
them.
we won't hold unless it's for a violent crime.
Oh, okay.
So if someone's there because I don't know, they had speeding tickets or
Or
something.
they stole some fruit
That's
from
that's not for us. We're not ICE, and our police department is not going to act like ICE. Our police department is going to serve and protect everyone equally, and protect all the residents of a city. That's what we do, and that's very much a part of our rules and procedures. And you hear that. I'm sure you hear that in the community. You're not getting feedback from the community. At least I'm not, and I hope you're not. That our police officers are acting in a way that would make them feel uncomfortable.
So how do you feel about the driver's licensing?
Good.
I know what they said. The motor vehicles around the block when they announced that.
It was.
Yeah.
Listen, you want to make sure that people are licensed, right? If they're licensed, they're
Well, then they can
insured,
get insured.
you know,
That's the
right,
biggest thing.
right.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
Because if I have an accident and somebody, I would like that person to be insured, whether they document it or not. That
Yep.
I'm not just up
Absolutely.
Schitt's Creek. Yeah.
That's true. No, it's true. And that
Okay.
happened a lot.
I thank you for coming. I said, was there any last words?
No, I'm good. I'm glad. Thank you for having me on.
Like I said,
Hi, Tasha.
I got a question. Tasha, Councilwoman Tasha Diaz is here. How do you like working with her?
Tasha is
Tasha,
somebody I know
Say hello.
long before she was a councilwoman, and I loved working with her before, and I love working with her now. So
Fantastic.
she's
That's
gonna
good to
be-
hear.
She is going to be a great representative of the people.
I do want to say, in closing, though, I want to say, whatever the process is to get more diversity, and especially in our police and fire department, whatever messages need to be get out, whatever Black Westchester can do to help that process. If Black Westchester needs to call the state, if whatever it is that you tell me what we can do to help that situation, to help get more diversity in these departments.
We have a little bit of work to do, but I have some ideas.
No, is there anything
And
that we can do to help?
Yeah,
and,
that would be. I will come on and ask for your help.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right.
Thank you very much. That is Yonkers Mayor Mike Spano, also the first mayor in New York State to endorse a candidate for the 2020 election.
Thank you.
Yes.
And when is the State of the Union?
State
of the city, sorry.
That's
State of
okay.
the city, I'm
It's
sorry.
March 18th
March
at 7 o'clock at the Yonkers Library.
It's
Riverfront
presidential
Library.
material.
Okay.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Well, I am hearing county clerk rumors, though.
No.
Oh, you see how quick
I
it
don't
is
like to say
again?
definitive no, but it's no. Well, because let me tell you why. Well, first, Tim is the county clerk. Secondly, I'd have to leave being mayor early, and I ran for mayor for a third time for a reason, and it wasn't so I could run for county clerk. So.
But that
love
rumor
being
has
mayor.
been out there for
Yeah.
the long. That's
Yeah, somebody keeps on driving that rumor, but it's not. It's
because I was at
it's a
I was at a
wonderful
function.
position.
I was at the function the other day.
I'm
And I
not-
said that you were going to be on the show. They said, "Yeah, he's going to be the new county clerk,
Yeah,
right?"
no, I'm
And
not-
that was like literally yesterday.
There's just certain jobs you're just not interested in. Like I'm not interested in being county clerk. I'm not interested in being president of the United States. Definitely not.
Oh, John.
So,
Okay, well, thank you for coming.
all right, but thank you though. Anyway,
Yes, and please, like I said, open door policy anytime.
thank
You
you.
gonna take a picture?
Now we're going to pay a word from our sponsors, pay our bills real quick. Let me do that while.
Ty Associates is a BBB accredited financial firm serving Mid-Hudson, New York, and the surrounding areas. From tax return preparation and amended returns to refund planning, we offer reliable financial services with keen attention to detail. Since 1998, we have proven the quality of our service with our clientele reaching across all 50 states. Ty Associates manages the Mets. Money, energy, time, and space. Let us go to bat for you. Ty Associates. Tying it all together.
And as promised, close that door, please. As promised, here is a little clip of Kobe Bryant highlights. Again, Kobe Bryant passed earlier this today in a helicopter crash. Him and his daughter and 3 other people, and we're celebrating the life of Kobe Bryant. So here is a clip I found of his top 10 plays of his career. Let me get that going.
Look at the hustle of Lamar Odom. Off to Kobe Bryant. And Kobe with emphasis. Artest looking, gets it to Bryant. Bryant dribbling, has to put it up with the buzzer. Banks it in! Oh! He banks in the 3! And the Lakers win the game! And that is just greatness personified.
Now Bryant again, out between the rings, guarded by Pippen. Kobe on the move, lobs for O'Neal, with a dunk! Kobe Bryant worked into the lane, and Shaq hammered it in with the right hand. Timeout, Portland.
The Lakers, because of this man, Kobe Bryant, can take over. Oh, wow. He posterizes Dwight Howard. Oh, boy. He almost threw his elbow into the basket that time.
Cannot buy a triple. Kobe wheeling. What a play to Turiaf. And the foul.
And a chance to tie.
What a delivery by Kobe Bryant.
Rotation of Bryant. Buckle up for Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant just sucked the gravity out of the target center. What a play.
The windmill slam.
Run out by Kobe Bryant. Behind the back. Oh! What did I just see?
You just saw what Kobe does best, and that's bring people to their feet with a sensational play.
Here we got a dribble drive, change of direction by Bryant. Slam dunk.
Woo! When you talk about elevation, Chick, he went up to the rafters before he decided to put somebody on a poster.
They'd love to get it into Nash's hands, and they do. Ball knocked away, stolen by Parker.
There it is.
Here comes George to Kobe Bryant. Bryant inside. It's good. It's good. Tie game. A 1-point game. Walton can tip it. Bryant with the save. Oh, you got to get a shot here. Final seconds. Bryant for the win. Bang!
Kobe Bryant has hit a shot at the buzzer.
Away from Elgin Baylor's Laker record. For 3 again. Yes!
Well, there's 70.
Everybody wants it to get into Kobe's hands. Kobe pump fake for 2. Kobe stopped the Laker record. 81-point game. Ladies and gentlemen, you have witnessed the second greatest scoring performance in NBA history.
Compound.
We wanted to celebrate the life of Kobe Bryant. I don't really want to talk so much of his passing, but celebrate his greatness, and I believe that's that is very important. As we switch guests, I'm going to play portion of another clip, real quick, and on the other side of that, we will be interviewing Westchester County District Attorney candidate Mimi Rocah.
And it was just an extraordinary moment in my life. I got to work with so much fish. There's so much more variety of fish than there is meat. We're going to cook our bronzino in salt crust. I want you to hear it. Over salt. It's a fish that has a very firm flesh, and therefore it's not going to flake apart. It's a pretty easy fish to cook. To really get that skin crispy, you want to get all of that water off of there. You notice all the moisture that's accumulating along my knife? Beautiful.
What he did for the game of
this
basketball,
is something that I eat maybe 2 or 3 days a week.
Kobe Bryant is a worker, and he made himself the best. I can guarantee you they have practice tomorrow.
Chocolate buttercream. It's a small dessert, but extremely rich. You can use a milk chocolate. You can even use a dark milk chocolate.
His performance was so awesome.
My spoon goes in nice and gently. Look how smooth and creamy that is.
Just so much fun.
I want you to be enriched in your cooking technique and therefore be able to nourish yourself, your friends, and your family. And you may make a couple mistakes, and that's okay. I've made countless mistakes, but you just keep moving forward. I'm Thomas Keller, and this is my masterclass.
Number 49.
Foul trouble with 4, approaching center of the play. Kobe Bryant.
That's something we posted on Black Westchester. It is the legend of Kobe Bryant. 20 minutes of Kobe's top 50 NBA highlights. You can watch that in its entirety on Black Westchester. I believe I shared the link. Let me see. This is it right here. That is the link to the entire 20-minute video on Black Westchester. Shout out to the people tuned in right now. Mount Vernon City Court Judge Adrian Armstrong. Click that off. Denise Cardoza Branch. Paul Anthony Cuesta. I mentioned him earlier. Cookie Alexander Campbell. Matumbo Muhammad, Pat Laguna, Sabrina L. Gray, Stephen Lewis, Delphin Huesler, I hope I pronounced your name right, I always mess it up, Phil Andrews, we said Ross, Nancy Cater Maldonado, Lynn Woodley, Lisa Mitchell, Kalisa James, what's up girl, from Long Island, Amityville, Long Island, Judge Karen Best, I believe we mentioned her, Simone Cone, Lionel Turner, and everybody else, Uncle Frank, everybody else who's tuned in. So that was the mayor of Mount Vernon. Our next guest, Westchester County District Attorney candidate, is not here yet. Do you host only politicians? Kodak Presley Memorial. No, this is the show. We give you real talk for the community. We deal with a lot of issues. We do deal with the candidates because we want to inform people on who the candidates are, so they'll be as informed as possible. In the ballot box, we've covered issues like homelessness, police brutality. All through February, we'll be dealing with Black history, and not your traditional Black history. Next week, we're dealing with the Mount Vernon's involvement in the civil rights era, and we're going to have one of the persons that was involved come here and talk about the history, Black history of Mount Vernon and the civil rights era. Damon Jones is putting together a show, my partner, towards the end of the month. It will probably be on like the history of Black law enforcement, because he's always saying that a lot of the young law enforcement does not know what price the older people had to pay for there to be Black police officers. So we'll be doing that. We touch upon a little bit of everything, anything that affects the community. So no, we don't only have politicians, but we end up doing, we do talk to our local elected officials, and we do talk to candidates running for office to get you to know them better. And we deal with corruption and everything else. I thank you for tuning in for the first time. If you go to blackwestchester.com and you click on the radio tab, you'll see People Before Politics. This is episode 249, I believe. You can see all of any of the shows that we did before. and you can tune in and see who the guests are and tune in from there. Thank you for checking us out. But yes, check out blackwestchester.com. I thank our advertiser, Ty Associates, and also announce, yes, we do have 30-second slots now on the People Before Politics radio show. So if you would like to advertise your business or your organization with a 30 seconds commercial on People Before Politics, contact us at blackwestchester.com. We're working on the February issue, which is going to deal with some Black history. Since Kobe Bryant died today, we will have open the door, because the computers get hot. And you see some people coming in, some people leaving. So we do have a few in the February. We're working on the February issue of the paper right now, which is going to be largely Black history. But now that Kobe Bryant died today, he will be the cover, and there will be a celebration of the life of Kobe Bryant. We're not going to be talking much about how he died and all that. We're going to be celebrating his life and his career, which is rich history. His passing is going to go down in history with the Aaliyahs and Ricky Vallee and Billie Holiday and all those big people that died in the middle of their career or before their time and accidents like that. And this is going to be something that they're going to be talking about for generations. It's a great loss. You can see his influence on the game. So we're going to celebrate that. And that should be coming out somewhere around the 14th. So if you would like to advertise in the February paper, you have this week to do so. Hit us at blackwestchester.com. If you don't know the rates and the prices, I will gladly send you that. And now we have our next guest, who we have been looking forward to. And a lot of people were very happy to hear when I mentioned that we were going to have her on.
Yes, they were.
Westchester County District Attorney candidate Mimi Rocah. Did I pronounce your name right?
You absolutely did. Thank you.
And I don't know how many interviews she's done in Westchester just yet, but I know we're one of the first, and I'm very proud because you can see her on CNN and MSNBC and all those other stations, and you can also see her on Black Westchester now.
And this is very important to talk about our issues right here, right now.
And I've often said that the most important election, that the position that people of color can vote for, is the district attorney's office, because it dictates what cases will come and how cases will be ruled. And this is we vote for mayor sometimes, we vote for city council, we all go out for the president and all that, but this is probably for Westchester County, well, any county period, but I'm speaking for Westchester, this is one of the most important positions that you can vote for. And I've been critical of the current occupier of that office right now, and I think he has failed us, and I'm just going to say that straight out. But he is invited on the show if he dares to come.
I doubt he will now.
Well, I doubt if he wasn't going to come, he wasn't going to come before. Not I can say now. We've given him enough grief that if he's going to come, he's going to come. If he's not, he's not. I mean, we're going to hold everybody's feet to the fire, and it doesn't. And if you run on corruption and you don't do it, we're going to hold your feet to the fire. So, Can
I applaud what you just said about it being one of the most important races that any people of any community can vote in. And actually, people don't know this, but everyone talks about criminal justice reform, and it's this big movement. Mm-hmm. One of the priorities of the criminal justice movement is to make sure that DAs don't run unopposed, because you know what happens when they run unopposed? They don't have to do anything. They don't have to prove themselves on their record. Right. So part of this is, the record being challenged, the promises that were made and not kept. What are your plans? What are your real visions for how you're going to make this better? And so you hit on such an important point, so I just wanted to echo that.
Well, okay, and I wanted to make sure I get this, give you an official round of applause. Get that in there. I'm very excited to have you on. Like, a lot of people, I've heard good things about you, but I told people that I can't get to know somebody until they sit across from me on a microphone. Okay. That is how I get to know who people are, what they stand for. Why are you running? Why are you running for this seat, and why now?
I'm running because I think there is so much more that we can do with the district attorney's office. You know, prosecutions, anybody can be the head of an office that does prosecutions, but to be the head of an office that really works with the community to try and prevent crimes in the first place, to try and help the kids that get arrested on the first arrest, not the fourth one, right, when it's too late, because at that point it's a much more serious offense. So let's put in place programs that are going to help them in the community on the first arrest to get them back on track. That's something that I think has not been done in Mount Vernon, in Yonkers, and really needs to be a priority.
Keep the door open too.
I think that it's shameful that there have not been public corruption prosecutions out of this DA's office. The one significant public corruption prosecution was done by the amazing Tish James, but we shouldn't have to wait for the Attorney General to come here to do public corruption prosecutions. We should be doing them in the district attorney's office. And so one of my priorities is to set the tone from the very beginning that I am an office that is open for business in terms of public corruption, and it's a priority. And one of the ways I'm doing that is I am not taking donations from any full-time elected officials. I am not taking campaign donations from police unions. I am not taking campaign donations from defense attorneys who have cases in front of the office. That's the whole, Harvey Weinstein problem. Mm-hmm. And I will not take campaign donations from people who work in my office. The current DA takes money from all of those groups that I just mentioned. And I think that's just something, before I even get there, that I can set the tone that this is going to be an office of integrity, that this is going to be an office that is divorced from politics and the political system, and that fighting public corruption and waste in government is going to be a major priority. So these are some of the reasons I'm running.
Well,
I have a lot more.
For the not taking donations from certain people, I just want to give you an applause on that. No, because seriously, we have a problem with, and we need campaign reform across the board. Yeah. I've seen from elections from the school board and library trustee up to city, state, county, etc., especially nationally, there are qualified candidates who can't compete and will never get in office because they don't have the money, and someone with big donors can outspend them and hold them up in court challenging their petitions over and over till they run out of money. That good candidates can't compete, and a lot of good candidates the people that would be good for office may not ever get in office. So I applaud. I think Paul Feiner was on the show, Greenberg's superintendent. He said, I think they passed it for Greenberg that no Greenberg candidates can take money from developers. That across the board, you cannot run for office in Greenberg and take money, and they wrote that into their charter or something like that.
Wow.
So
it's about getting rid of conflicts of interest, right? So that when you're in office, you're not making decisions based on what donations you got. I also won't make hiring decisions based on who worked on my campaign, which the current DA has done.
I'm glad to hear that, and not just the current DA. That's a problem right now with the Democratic Party in Westchester. You work on a campaign, and then people that work on a campaign get a job, and they're not. Yeah. They may not be qualified for some of the positions, but they were very instrumental. And I worked on Richard Thomas' campaign, and I was offered any position I wanted to a certain point over and over, and I was like, I'm not in it for that. And I said you got to win the primary first before we got that conversation. But it's just like, so some people I felt salty because I didn't get a position. I didn't want a position. I turned down positions. So I just I applaud that. And we have too much of that. Now I want to say a few things right now. You have to understand, Scarpino is a continuation of a lack of accountability that has been in Westchester County towards the communities of color. Janet DeFiore, who's a rhino, who is just a Republican and a Democrat in name only. She wouldn't prosecute cases like Kenneth Chamberlain when the White Plains Police Department called him the N-word as they were breaking down his door and beanbagged him, tased him, and killed him when they went there for a medical call. And she says that wasn't a hate crime. That was that was just a way to distract him so they can get his door off. And she has failed in several other incidents where there have been police shootings, and has not. So and I can't speak back before then because I was in Atlanta for a few years and I came back. She was in office, and Scarpino has been a continuation. So I say that to say, the communities of color are very skeptical, because they've heard this from Scarpino. I'm going to get in, I'm going to handle corruption, I'm going to prosecute all corrupt. And we've seen nothing since you've been elected. So, I mean, you're up against that. So you do understand that.
Yeah,
so,
I do. And look, I have a couple answers to that. I mean, responses. First of all, I'm not a politician. I mean, in case you haven't noticed, I have never run on a campaign before. I don't talk really in sound bites. I wish I did a little more. But I'm not about making empty promises. I mean, I'm sick of that. I'm an American citizen. I'm, been listening to politicians all my life, and I'm sick of that too. What I do try to do is lay out what my vision is. Doesn't mean I'm going to be perfect and achieve every single thing that I want to achieve, but I'm going to tell you what I'm going to fight for. And I think people see that I'm sincere in what I'm going to fight for. And this is what I did for 16 and a half years as a prosecutor. I mean, I did work on public corruption prosecutions. I worked on prosecutions of corrections officers who were involved in beatings. Now, and I'm going to say from day one, look, I think most law enforcement are good people who have good intentions.
Absolutely.
And I worked with them. But we all know that there is bad law enforcement too. I mean, it happens. And I'm going to make it clear from day one that those kinds of cases will absolutely be prosecuted by my office, and not just right before an election, because I think, that may be coming. It's going to be when the case is warranted to be brought. And you mentioned the word accountability. That is a big part of what I am, my vision, my platform.
Do me a favor, pull the mic closer, it moves. I just want everybody to make sure they hear it. Yeah.
And one of the ways, in addition to what I told you about not taking campaign donations, which I think, again, is about being accountable to the people, not just to certain groups of people, right? So I'm also put out a plan for transparency from the DA's office. What do I mean by that? We are going to make public on a regular basis. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know yet what that basis is. It's more than yearly. Some reform groups want every month, but we'll figure out what regular intervals it means. But we are going to put out data about what money the DA's office has, how it's spending that money, what the arrest statistics are, what the racial disparities in those statistics are, all kinds of information that right now the public probably could find, but it's really hard to find it.
I'm not getting it when I foil it. So
right, exactly.
Once that's the public.
Well, and there's something really simple we could start with. The current DA has not published a list of police officers with credibility findings against them. That's called, and I don't love the term, but it's called a, quote, bad cop list. And other DA's offices have put it out. And this DA has been called upon.
In Maryland, what's her name? In Baltimore.
Yeah, well,
she put one out.
Here in New York, some of them have. I mean, it's not, this is something, and not only hasn't he put it out, but he hasn't given a good reason to not put it out. So it makes you wonder why that is. Why isn't he putting out the list of? It's not exposing information that nobody. I mean, again, it's probably information we could find out. These are people who have had truly adverse findings that they had lied about significant things that affect the fact that they can't now be a witness in a courtroom, a witness at a trial, which for law enforcement is, a really big deal, because that basically means, you can't do a significant part of your job. So why is the DA not putting that list out? And he hasn't even given any explanation. And look, he might do it now right before the election. But again, this is about doing things on regular intervals to give people information in the community so that, it's going to probably cause some headaches and I'm going to get criticism. But I kind of invite that in the sense that that's how change happens, is when you all have the information, we put the sunlight on it, and we work on the problems as opposed to running away and hiding from them.
Absolutely. I think he has, both of him and his predecessor have have failed as far as any sort of police corruption. The only time Janet DeFiore actually indicted officers was stories we worked on 2 Yonkers cops that falsified search warrant affidavits, ended up throwing a guy out the window, and he landed on his back, and they said he committed suicide. And one of the cases was Jamal Smythe of Peekskill, who was sentenced to like 20-something years because they lied on his case, and because we covered the story, he was able to be released after 3. But she only indicted them to cover her ass because, well, this is People Before Politics. This is not.
This is not MSNBC, obviously.
And there's no.
I wish I could say that.
And there's no.
I'm talking about Trump.
Yes. And there's no.
We know.
There's no FCC here, so and there's a lot worse said on this show. But she only did it to cover her ass, and that was because she had prosecuted so many cases based on those 2 officers, and over 20 or 30 cases had to be reviewed or overturned. You know what I'm saying? And that's
so,
and Scarpino has failed. There's been the Eastchester case we covered, where a former Eastchester cop passed. His wife, he had 8 or 9 guns. She did not want these guns to go wherever. She turned them in the way she was supposed to. She never got a receipt that she returned them. One of the guns is missing now. 1 or 2 of the guns that the police department have no account of. We don't know where the guns are. There's then there was the White Plains PBA. Over $200,000 is missing. Embezzlement. There's nothing done on that. Several things in Mount Vernon. Several things in Yonkers. She's not doing.
And one big piece of that is Detective Fogarty from Yonkers, right? So because you mentioned the other Yonkers detectives who had been prosecuted for perjury.
Right.
So he pled guilty to perjury a couple weeks ago.
Right, and this is the more recent, right.
But, and I've been talking about this on the campaign trail, so it's an important point to mention. He pled guilty a couple weeks ago, and then Scarpino the DA came out with a statement, okay, we're going to now, this is to your point, go and review all cases that Fogarty worked on. But a year before he pled guilty, and this is, I mean, you can read this in Low HUD. A year before he pled guilty, Fogarty had been removed from the DEA task force. So right then, there should have been some red flags. A year ago, not now when he pled guilty. That's when you start looking for cases that he worked on, right? Other cases. Because this guy lied about where evidence was. I mean, he essentially tried to frame someone with drugs, and it fortunately got caught, but what else did he do? And I've heard the current DA say, well, I didn't know that Fogarty was removed from the task force. And my answer to that, as someone who worked in law enforcement for 16 years, as someone who was chief of the White Plains Division and for the U.S. Attorney's Office, is if you didn't know that a detective in Yonkers was removed from a task force because of a problem, then that's a problem.
Absolutely.
And if you did know and you didn't act on it, that's an even bigger problem. But either way, there's just no excuse.
Absolutely. So where do you stand on police corruption?
I mean, I think it goes
Just
along.
explain.
I think it goes along with everything we're talking about. I mean, like I said, and I do think it's important to keep saying. I mean, I've worked with police officers all across Westchester, at both state, county, federal, and most of them are really good law enforcement. And the same way that when I was involved in the prosecution of a FBI agent who was in my federal position, who was involved in some kind of corruption, the FBI agents that I knew were grateful that we were doing that prosecution, because it reflects badly on them. It makes it harder for them to do their job. And at the end of the day, that's why we can't, it's one of many reasons why we can't let corruption in police departments go uncharged, unattended to, unfocused on, because it makes it harder for law enforcement to actually do their job, and you do risk innocent people going to jail based on corruption, like what we're talking about. And the risk of even one innocent person going to jail is too much.
Well, do you, and I'm going to get to Bob, and that's Dr. Bob that just entered the room. No, I'm telling the audience that.
Oh, okay.
Dr. Bob just walked in.
I met them too.
I wanted to acknowledge them, but we've seen a failure to go after Democratic elected officials because of the party. That has been a problem. Where do you stand on that? Could you, and you can at broad base, would you go after a Democratic candidate? You're a Democrat, like I'm specifically being, would you go after a Democratic elected official, the mayor of a city or whatever for corruption?
I mean, look, I was in an office, again, the U.S. Attorney's Office, that was during the time of a Democratic administration, so under President Obama, we prosecuted Democrats, Republicans. It doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter. That is absolutely not what should guide prosecutorial. Frankly, it's one of the things I've criticized Trump and Bill Barr for.
Right.
That, you know, the minute a Republican gets charged with something, Trump likes to say, oh, it's just, you know, a witch hunt. They're after my... No, you follow the facts and the law. It should be absolutely separate from... Justice should be separate from politics, period. And I'm trying to set that tone from the beginning, and the things that I'm talking about in the things about that I've said about donations. It doesn't mean I'm going to be targeting any particular group of elected officials or any elected officials.
Right.
But I will be open. My door will be open for business in terms of, you know, sources of information who feel comfortable coming to us and knowing we're not just going to sweep it under the rug.
And one more thing before Bob. Tell us a little about your history. Who is Mimi Rocah? What have you done? Who are you?
So I was, there's a lot. Let's see, because I'm turning 50, so I got a lot of history.
I got you beat. I'll be 54 in a couple of days.
All right, there you go. So I grew up in Chicago, actually. My 90-year-old mom still lives there. But I've, you know, been in New York for forever now, it feels like. My husband grew up in Scarsdale, which is why we live there. I live with my 2 kids and our very big, awesome dog who rules the house.
Yay!
A rescue.
She's a dog lover.
Yeah, me too. He's a rescue. His name is Ace, and he's awesome. You know, I've been a federal prosecutor for 16 and a half years. That is really what it's been my passion. I became a prosecutor, and maybe we can talk a little bit more about this. I became a prosecutor in large part because growing up, my mom had told me a story about her life, which was that she had been the victim of a violent rape many years ago. And when she filed the police report, this was in Chicago, you know, the police took the report and said, thank you very much, we'll be in touch, and basically nothing happened. I mean, this was a long time ago. But it was a time when our society really didn't take those kinds of sexual assault crimes seriously, didn't treat them like other crimes. You know, it was just a different level of seriousness. And so what I learned from her was that, you know, as horrible as a rape is, the humiliation of your justice system not taking it seriously is almost worse. And so I'm going to tell you this story about something that happened to me that inspired me, because my opponent is trying to twist it and use it against me, and I actually published an article about it today to explain it.
And Damon Jones, my partner in Black Westchester, has just posted it on Black Westchester, the danger politics of win at any cost.
Exactly.
He just posted it on our website.
So whenever people ask me my history, like you did, I tell this story about my mom and how when I was in college in 1991, so I was 21 years old, I saw a group of women speaking about their careers. You know, it was like a panel where we got to go and see women talking about their jobs. And one of the women was Linda Fairstein. And I saw her talking about...
Of the Central Park Five.
Of the Central Park Five, which we'll talk about in one sec. But the personal history part is that I saw her speak about starting sex crimes units in DA's offices for the first time in the 1970s. And I was really inspired by that. As someone whose mom had not gotten justice, and I knew she was not alone in that, that was like, wow, wait, this is revolutionary. Right now we're going to treat them like crimes. We're going to have people who are trained in how to deal with victims. We're going to have the real forensics. I mean, this was a revolution in that sense, and it was inspiring to me. And so I talk about that. And so when I've done some interviews and stuff and people ask me, I've talked about Linda Fairstein in that moment in 1991 as a 21-year-old girl, how it inspired me. That has nothing to do with what I think of Linda Fairstein and the Central Park Five case. So let me be really clear, in case there was any ambiguity, that I think there was a miscarriage of justice that was horrible for all the people involved, the 5 of them involved in that case. They lost years of their lives and their families. And it is frankly, excuse me, I have a cold. It is frankly one of the reasons why I have made conviction integrity such a big part of my platform. Real conviction integrity, not window dressing like the current district attorney is doing, where he says he has conviction integrity unit. I have a real plan that's comprehensive. I am meeting with innocence advocates and exonerees to really come up with a plan to make sure that there's no innocent person in jail. I think that the current DA, I have heard him say when I bring this up, well, we don't need a really big unit for conviction integrity in Westchester, because in Brooklyn, they have a big problem with that. But in Westchester, we don't have a lot of those cases. We don't have a big problem. And I almost fell off my chair when I heard him say that, because one innocent person in jail is too many. And second of all, how does he know we don't have a problem with it? Like, he can't say that because we don't have the system in place in the DA's office to really go through those cases, to invite those kinds of applications. And I know there are people who have tried to reach out to that office and been turned away. So ironically, though, he is out there, and I think this is just lower than low. He has been out there in communities through surrogates, trying to put out there that I somehow am, aligned with Linda Fairstein and the way she prosecuted cases, because I have this very personal story about my mother being raped and how Linda Fairstein inspired me. That has nothing to do with how I view Linda Fairstein's handling of the case, or the fact that she hasn't yet come to terms with and apologized for how that case was handled.
Bob, two things. One, can you, after you ask your question, can you do me a favor, see Cruz, and get her a bottle of water?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
I have some laryngitis.
Firstly, welcome, Mimi. I must admit to being somewhat starstruck as a regular viewer on MSNBC. Yours is a very powerful voice to the cry for, vigorous law enforcement.
Thank you.
And so we really appreciate it and welcome the opportunity for you to translate your broad vision of social justice into into policies. First, I just wanted to know, I know you have a 15-year history as an attorney, I guess, at the federal level. But I want to know, could you go over in a little bit more detail, maybe the highlights of your career? What was the focus of your work? I was watching Maya Wiley the other day, and she was sure to inform someone that she was a civil attorney with the federal prosecutor's office. Were you, and where exactly did you fall in the division of labor?
Yes, Maya always points that out. So I was always a criminal prosecutor. I started in the Manhattan office actually in February of 2001, so just a few months before the 9/11 attacks. And the U.S. Attorney's office in Manhattan is just a few blocks from the World Trade Center. So that actually was a very big part of my first few years in the office. After the attacks happened, I actually went back into our office just a week after the attacks, because they needed some people to be in the office to kind of man, everything was shut down below chambers, but we had to have a couple people go in and kind of just, I don't know what they really expected us to do, but they had to have people in the office. So I was one of the few, 5 or 6 people who went in. We walked around with masks over our face. It was smoky. It was surreal. It was just a obviously frightening time. And I was actually part of, there were a bunch of us who were doing subpoenas and working with the JTTF, and it turned out there wasn't really much work to do, but at the time we didn't know that, and so we were trying to sort of help, support the team that was trying to trace the footsteps, basically, of the terrorists. And but I sort of grew up in the office. I started as a baby prosecutor. Everybody goes through kind of a few different units, and what I ended up doing a large part of my career down there was actually organized crime. I was in the organized crime and terrorism unit, which then split off to organized crime itself, and I did a lot of mafia cases. I worked on Genovese, Gambino, DeCavalcanti family, which is the family from New Jersey that most people have not heard of. I did a lot of some Albanian organized crime having to do with human smuggling. Human trafficking was considered part of organized crime. So that was the bulk, and I became the chief of that unit, of the organized crime unit. I did also prosecute. I went to trial against John Gotti Jr. You may not know that he actually was never convicted. There were numerous trials against him. I did one of them, and his mom actually, and I had a little run-in in the courtroom that I live to tell the day.
I was just saying, you live.
Yeah, that's exactly what one wants to hear.
I'm familiar with her when they had a reality show for
but that was the kind of work I did a lot of in the city, and then I became a supervisor of some different units, and so I was training younger assistants, I eventually was Preet Bharara, who was the U.S. Attorney under Obama, appointed me to be chief of the White Plains Division. And the White Plains Division oversees all criminal cases for Westchester County, Rockland County, Orange County, and Putnam County. So that was my role, was working with law enforcement, working with everyone to investigate and bring charges in those counties. And that's how I really got to know law enforcement and victim services groups here in Westchester.
So from my personal experience as a politico here in the Westchester County, Lower Hudson Valley, the sense that I get is that there's a very close nexus between our elected officials on the one hand, and especially large donors and campaign donors that I think is engendering a lot of the kind of problems that we see in the delivery of municipal services, most notoriously out in Flint, Michigan. But my sense is that this seems to be more widespread. You probably have heard reports that there are forever chemicals in much of the water system across the United States. But my concern is that a lot of our business community here in Westchester County, members of the business community in Westchester County, deep-pocketed donors, are trying to position themselves for advantages in municipal contracts through their involvement in the campaign, their support of the candidates, and what can the district attorney's office do beyond the current posture that is taken that seems to me not to be quite sufficient to the task?
Well, we talked a little bit about this, but look, some of those prosecutions that you're talking about have happened at the federal level. They should also be happening at the state level. And I think one of the reasons why it's important to make sure that we let people know that, again, you're not targeting anyone, but your doors are open to sources of information, and you're not going to just sweep things under the rug, and you're going to follow the facts and pursue investigations that should be pursued. At the local level, that's where you're going to get, that's the person who, is in an office and sees some kind of, funny business, for lack of a better legal term, going on. That's the person who, is working and sees malfeasance and how our taxpayer money is being wasted, by, again, most public officials, I think, are good public officials, but of course there are bad eggs, and we have to make sure that the DA's office, which is where you're going to have your ear to the ground more, that's where, they're not going to pick up the phone and call the FBI. Most people don't do that unless it's, some terrorism or something. So while the feds can, and I address this because I've heard Scarpino actually answer this question by saying, well, that's really for the feds to handle. No, the DA's office should absolutely handle it. Just because they haven't doesn't mean they shouldn't. And again, I think this goes to separating our justice system from politics. Yes, it's an elected position, but that doesn't mean the office should be a political one.
One of the things that I've heard spoke about, district attorneys get their investigators from the police departments. So it's hard to prosecute a particular person from a police department if you have an investigator from that department and that relationship. So, where do you go when you have those situations? Can you speak on that a little bit? Right.
Well, I mean, when we're talking about certain officer-involved killings, those are going to go to the Attorney General's office, right, if it's an unarmed civilian. But beyond that, I mean, yeah, we have to put into place a system that is independent, right? Just like with conviction integrity that I was talking about before, we can't have you can't have prosecutors in the office who do cases in the office also reviewing the cases that other prosecutors in the office do. That makes no sense. I mean, they can't. You can't expect someone to be objective in that situation. And we need to figure out a system where the people who are working on cases involving police misconduct are not someone who was in that police department. I mean, it's as simple as that.
And I've also heard it said, one of the problems with prosecuting things when it comes to the police, because you need the officers for witnesses. You have to have that relationship, and you don't want to push that relationship, because you need their witness to prosecute. You need them.
Right. Well, I mean, and that's true. I mean, it's not that it's easy, right? I mean, this is, but we have to be able, as prosecutors, and I did this as a federal prosecutor, and it's why I use the example of the FBI agent. I mean, I work with the FBI as a federal prosecutor every single day. But if there was a bad FBI agent, someone who had committed a crime, I won't say bad, but someone who had committed a crime, we prosecuted them. And you know, most FBI agents understood that and frankly appreciated it. I mean, you just have to be strong enough to stand up to that and to say, if there are facts that lead you to show a crime that should be prosecuted, you're not going to not prosecute it just because of some relationship. It all comes down to that. And, you know, that's something I think that I can do.
For people hearing you for the first time, don't know, they want to reach out to you, website, social media, you know, maybe they want to volunteer or donate.
That would be great. So we have a website. It's Mimi Rocah, 4DA, F-O-R, and it's Rocah is R-O-C-A-H. And on the website, they can, you know, reach us through emails and all that. And I'm on Twitter, probably too much still. That'll have to end at some point. But I tweet a lot about Trump and Barr and all that stuff, but also about local issues and about my campaign. And it's just Mimi Rocah 1, number 1. And I'm on Facebook. We have a campaign website Facebook page, Mimi Rocah for DA also.
And something that I'm helping promote a little bit that Aleda probably could bring you to, there is a lovely art exhibit at the Mount Vernon Public Library. An expression of outrage from, you know, African Americans killed, and you'll see it's powerful. It's powerful. Yeah. It's called 17, The Revolution Will Be Visualized. It runs throughout the month of February. Okay. And it was inspired back when Trayvon, you know, he was killed when he was 17. That was the number for that. So I just think, you know, in your position, that would be powerful for you. The imagery is all put together. It's like 17 portraits throughout the thing, too. So from different artists.
Go to that. Aleda will take me, right?
Yes.
Lorraine.
When you become district attorney, because let's think, you know, let's
the
think
power of positive thinking.
Let's think positive here. Can you please review the office of the district attorney in Yonkers? Because I called them last week about a domestic violence case. I can tell you that I must have called 6 times. I called the district attorney's office in White Plains, and they sent me back to these folks, and I must have got the runaround at least maybe 12 times. They sent me to one place from another, and at one point 4 different channels they sent me to, and to the point that the lady got rude because she was upset that I was calling so many times trying to get an answer. And I'm thinking, oh my God, it's a domestic violence case, and nobody was answering.
And you were trying to get like a history of what was going on with the case, or
I was trying to, basically a history about what was going on with the case, and I wanted to speak to the person in the domestic violence unit, and it was horrible. I couldn't get through.
That's
I mean,
not
I got a lot of
acceptable,
answering
obviously.
machines, and I got quite a few answering machines, and then I got folks telling me, okay, it's not me, it's this one. I'm gonna transfer you. They would transfer me. It wasn't that one, and then they would transfer me. It wasn't that one. Then the next route was the answering machine again.
So, I mean, I've actually heard a lot of similar stories, not just in the domestic violence context. I mean, but people who, and I've seen the current DA, actually, people bring it up to him in some of these meetings that we've been at together. It seems to me that, you know, this is about sort of leadership and organization, right? Most of the people that work in that office are good people trying to do their good jobs. I know a lot of those prosecutors, but you need to set the tone at the top about being accessible to the community, about being responsive to the community, but I put that on the leadership. You know, and you need to have systems. I mean, look, frankly, the Southern District of New York, you know, the great, you know, office that people talk about, it was not always great at communication, but they changed it. They saw that and they made changes. And that's just something we're going to have to really look at, is how are our concerns, requests, questions from the community being handled. I won't bore your listeners with it, but I have a lot of examples of things that have come to my attention, even before I was running, that I find like jurors who were upset because they were receiving letters in the mail from a defendant's relative that they had just convicted, and they were trying to reach out to the district attorney's office and didn't get an answer for weeks.
Oh, wow.
And they actually reached out to me. And I had a call, and again, that's about the tone at the top, that you don't just leave jurors who are scared hanging out there in the wind. And so, again, I think that the people who are working in that office are trying to do a good job. They mean well. They've been there for a long time. That long before Scarpino. I think it's about setting the tone at the top.
Anything I didn't ask you so far that you want people to know why you're running?
No, you guys are really. This is the most comprehensive. This is much. More
Hopefully, you don't feel like you're
more hard hitting than MSNBC, though. I will tell you.
Y'all heard that, right?
Yeah.
Well, so as you know, Mimi, there's been a lot of controversy over our criminal justice system, the way it's operated, and there have been calls for reforms. One of the most significant is the calls for reform of the discovery process. Yes. And I wanted to know, firstly, can you provide our viewers with an overview of the importance of the discovery process in the adversarial system within criminal justice and how that's related to the quest for truth?
Absolutely.
And then maybe afterwards tell us what your position is on it and what you would do as the DA.
I mean, that is another great question, really, because I think a lot of people hear the word discovery and their eyes glaze over and they stop listening because it sounds boring. But it is super important. So discovery is all about, prosecutors investigate a case, whether it be for a day because something happened right then and there, some kind of violent crime that police respond to on the minute, or a case that they've built over time by investigating. But they collect evidence. And the question is, what evidence do they have that they're going to use against someone at a trial or even just to charge them? And the defense has a right to see that evidence. And what happened in New York State is it was taking, first of all, way too long for the defense to get discovery. So by the time they got it, it just wasn't helpful. And frankly, I think there was, not necessarily because of anyone's bad intention, but things were just falling through the cracks. I mean, you have a lot of different police departments, a lot of different places to collect the evidence, and it wasn't centralized, there wasn't a system, and there was no rules really requiring, exactly what had to be turned over in a short period of time. So the whole point is for the defense to be armed with information. So you don't have trial by, sabotage, that the defense has sort of as level playing field as possible, right? I mean, we know that prosecutors have a lot of power, and we have to recognize that. That's part of criminal justice reform, is recognizing that prosecutors have power, and it's a question of how they use it, and use it well, and how they use their discretion, and making sure it's used in the best way. And again, that's something I think as a leader that you need to teach your people. That's from day one. This isn't just about seeking prosecutions, it's about seeking justice. Sometimes that means pursuing a case till the as much as possible. Sometimes that means dropping a case when there are red flags and there are things that make you think this isn't right. Sometimes that means giving someone a break. So on discovery, though, it means trying to give as equal a playing field to the defense as possible. And so it is probably the most important tool you can give to a defense attorney, and often people who are charged. But really, I mean, that's an attorney's role. So now, it's required that they have to turn it over earlier. This is much more like the federal system that I grew up in, which is not perfect, but we did discovery basically within a short period of time after someone was charged, just like now we have to do, they have to do in New York State. And we did essentially open file discovery. I mean, there were we didn't have to, but whenever someone would come into my office that I was supervising and say, well, I don't know if I have to turn this over, I'm not sure if under the rules, I would say, but why not? Why not turn it over? What are you hiding it from? Now, of course, there's some strategy that goes into trials, but at the end of the day, if you don't want to turn it over, you actually better think about that, because you probably don't want to turn it over because it's something that's not great for your case. Right. But all the more reason, turn it over now and early, and let's see what the defense attorney has to say about it. Maybe you've got a problem with your case and you want someone to take you out of that tunnel vision. That's what caused the problem in the Central Park 5 case. It was tunnel vision. It was, we've got these guys and they did it. And even though there were all these red flags telling them, to look elsewhere, they didn't. And so that's one of the biggest dangers with prosecutors, and that, you know, reform advocates talk about, which I think makes absolute sense. And that's what Preet talks about, that before it was really part of the movement. And he taught us about that you have to be able to look at the red flags, drop everything when you have them, and pay attention. And that's true with discovery. I think helps make that happen. It helps kind of fetter out the problems. And you want to do that, because your biggest concern as a prosecutor should be that you are prosecuting the wrong person. That should be the thing you are most scared of. Not losing a case, but prosecuting the wrong person.
Wow.
Yeah, so, and we've had Yusef Salaam and his mom on 2015 and 2016, way before the documentary, when everybody wanted to talk to him. They've been in the studio. Bob Marone from Radio 1, I'm often on there several times, and your name had came up a bunch of times, and he was like, if I get a chance, I'm going to ask her this question. I said, I have her coming on Sunday. So he had that one question. The first question you already answered was what were your reasons for primary in the current district attorney? I think you covered that. Another one, he said, is one of the reasons you're running because you believe our politics need to move more left, ? And if so, is it the role of the district attorney in your view, to enforce the laws that are currently on the books? I'm not sure what that means.
So, I mean, I think what he's getting at there is, I think, two different things. I mean, look, I think the district attorney's office should be the least political elected office we have. It's part of why I think this idea that you don't primary an incumbent, I'm not sure, I mean, whether anyone believes that for other offices. I think for the DA's office, it's absolutely healthy and necessary, because it shouldn't just be about political campaigns. It should be about what you're doing with the office to make the system more fair and to make it more accessible, as you were talking about, to the community and to victims. I mean, I think we have a lot of work to do on that side too. And, you know, not just sort of settling for, well, this is good enough, but what else can we be doing? It's great if crime rates are dropping, but there's more we can do with the office. So I don't think that position is about politics. People ask me, like, why are you a progressive prosecutor? I've never labeled it before. I mean, probably under some people's definition, yeah, I fall under that definition. But for me, it's not about political labels. I mean, I've heard the current DA talk a lot about how he's a progressive prosecutor. I mean, anyone can call themselves something. But the question is, what's your vision? What's your passion? What are you really trying to do? And for me, it's both protecting victims, you know, prosecuting crimes where there are victims of violent crimes, in particular, sex crimes, domestic violence, sex trafficking, child abuse, elder abuse, all those things. But also, at the same time, making sure that the system is fair. This goes to the discovery point. And making sure that we aren't just putting window dressing on things and saying that we have conviction integrity, that we're giving, you know, a fair shake to people in the system, and trying to prevent it in the first place by investing resources back in the community, like forfeiture money. So I don't know if that answers his question, but I'm trying to keep the politics out of it, I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay. Any last word, anything I haven't asked you that you, again, and maybe repeat your website and social media again?
Sure. It's Mimi Rocah 4DA, FOR, and Mimi Rocah 1 is my Twitter, and Facebook campaign page is also Mimi Rocah 4DA.
Okay.
Mimi, do you have any plans to maybe make it, my hometown is Mount Vernon. I don't know, you know, what your campaign schedule is and whether you have stops planned in the city of Mount Vernon to talk directly to members of the community about your vision for reforms in the district attorney's office should you be elected.
I would love that opportunity. I mean, I addressed the committee just the other night, but I know,
right,
I did address them, and you know, it was very well received. I think what I was saying, and it was very positive. But someone had reached out to me about maybe doing kind of a panel on criminal justice reform in Mount Vernon, which I think would be great. I've also challenged my opponent to 10 debates between now and June, because I think, you know, we need to have a real back and forth on these, and he hasn't taken me up on any of them.
Right now, if he will dare to come to the studio, I will host a debate between the two of you. Right here on the studio, right here.
That would be great. I don't know. He hasn't taken me up on my offer yet.
Well, I will have somebody reach out to him as well. We're inviting. Now, listen, I have been critical of the current, and regardless of my criticism, we bring all candidates on. I brought candidates that I didn't like and had no chance in hell of winning, but I brought them on here because they were running. But so we give everybody their fair due. But I would love to see him. He is invited to the show individually, and then I would love to hold a debate between the two of you if he is willing to show up here. So anybody who knows him, tell him I said that.
I'm going to be surprised if there's monitors today.
No, I'm expecting that there should be because.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, if
we advertise it everywhere.
Not only that, no, I sent it to his office. I sent his office some flyers. So I sent it to Reggie Lafayette. I sent it to everybody. I sent it to everybody who was anybody. Lorraine, any questions? Any last wrapping up?
No. I just wish her the very best. I wish you good luck. And
Thank you.
We need some type of change. And you sound like you're gonna be amazing.
Thank you.
I wish you the
gonna
best.
try my best. I really am.
Okay.
AJ, if there's any district leaders that are listening, next week is the convention.
Okay.
Where you get to vote for either candidate. That's the 29th.
On Wednesday, yeah.
On Wednesday.
7 o'clock at the county center.
Is that the county convention?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
And they can
okay.
give proxies, though. If they don't want to go, we can get them proxies.
Damon said good luck with that because he knows that Scarpino's not going to show up either. So, but we're sending out the invitation regardless. I wish you the best.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was
Love to have you come on. I'd love to have you come back on
I'd
closer
like
to
that.
the election again. And I'm just I'm thank you for a lot of people. I'm thankful for people's time. Everyone, you don't have to come here. You have a bigger platform than this to come to, and you didn't count a robbery to spend time with us and let us talk to our audience, and I greatly appreciate the time.
This is the most important platform to talk about these issues, and this is where TV is TV, but this is my passion. This is what I want to do.
Well, so I wish you well, and Dr. Bob, anything else, real quick? Last words.
Thanks for coming on the show, Mimi. We appreciate you taking the time to speak directly to us and our audience, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of all of the Black Westchester crew in saying that we are grateful to you and your colleagues at MSNBC for sharing with the American public what is at stake in the battle that we're having at the federal level.
Absolutely.
Yes, we try to deal with the president.
Yeah.
So
terrifying.
Yes.
Any last words on the president? That has nothing to do with the election.
Oh man. I think what's so upsetting about these impeachment hearings is watching how Adam Schiff and all of the House managers, Val Demings has been just one of my heroes. They've put on this incredible case that, so meticulous. They've proved this 10 times over, that he abused his power, that he basically shook down Ukrainian government to help him with, and he'll do it again. He's doing it now and he'll do it again. And the problem is that it does really feel like it's just not going to matter. And I think that's the most upsetting thing. It would almost feel better if you felt like, well, they didn't really prove their case. But they did 10 times over, and everyone in that room knows it. And that's why Adam Schiff was getting so upset. I don't know if anyone watched his closing. He really looked near tears. And I think it's because, when you know the truth, and people are just ignoring it and making up excuses about why they're not going to, and all we're asking him to do is vote to have evidence. We're not even asking him to impeach right now. We're just to vote him out of office. We're just saying, hey, Republicans, can we at least have a real fair trial here with evidence and witnesses? That's all they have to say. How hard can that be? So that's, I think, what the frustration that a lot of people, myself included, are having right now.
And I wanted to just echo your sentiments about the impropriety of the president making veiled threats to.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Congressman Schiff.
unbelievable. I mean, he basically was calling on someone to take revenge on him on Twitter.
Oh God,
It's just
I saw
unbelievable.
that. That was, actually, I got it from you.
Yeah,
From your
I mean,
post.
it just it's
Yeah.
and too many people are afraid to call that out for what it is, because it's almost so hard to believe, right? Like, really, the president wouldn't do that, but yeah, he does, and he has been, and we have to call it what it is. He's inciting violence, and if anyone else did that, there would be, back to your word, accountability. And for this president, there just doesn't seem to be. But the truth is going to keep coming out. It's coming out.
Right.
And so I think all the senators just really need to think about whatever vote they do now, how it's going to look when the full story is out down the road, and they should vote accordingly.
Well, we want to thank you for coming through. Thank you for taking the time to spend time with us. We wish you the best. This is Black Westchester Presents, the People Before Politics radio show. We're here on Sundays, every Sunday, 6 to 8 on InTheMixRadio.com, giving you real talk since 2014. And I'm going to let some highlights of Kobe Bryant take us out. Until next week, peace.
Oh, this Kobe Bryant thing is unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, certainly a reminder.
Oh, what happened to the volume?
I mean, my son, my 10-year-old.
Learning multiple languages.
Tomahawk with the right hand. What a silly foul.
For many years in Italy, so that's where Kobe picked up the beautiful Italian.
So our parents just immersed us in Italian culture. So we were just surrounded by Italian kids. We were just learning the language as they were.
For me, growing up in isolation turned out to be a great strength for me, but it also turned out to be a weakness too, and things that I kind of had to navigate through as my career went on.
Oh yeah, this guy grew up in Italy, and then he got dropped back in America.
So now to move back at the age of 13 in middle school and being completely different. I had a hard time reading, had a hard time kind of getting adjusted to the culture.
What I remember would be him coming in as a kid and tremendous expectations.
But I was reading all the stuff about his high school coach saying they would get there and he would be shooting baskets in the dark. They hadn't even turned the lights on yet.
When did you know no one is going to outwork me?
I never looked at it as work. I didn't realize it was work until my first year in the NBA.
The Aces of Lower Merion, featuring the best player in high school basketball in 1995, Kobe Bryant.
People want to assume that because someone has physical attributes, they don't have mental attributes. They always want to say that.
Talk about academically, he speaks fluent Italian. There he is, Mr. Bryant, flying champ.